Well, in the early 60s, when I started down there, nobody knew how to spell environment, let alone do anything about it.
This is where they lived, and so they're very tied to it both spiritually and historically. Their ancestors are buried near it. It is the center of their world.
It's been referred to off and on as the most polluted lake in the United States.
This is the story of two lakes. One high in the hills formed by glaciers, narrow, deep and pure. The other lake was wider and shallower, but it was a jewel, and it was a holy lake to the Iroquois Indians. One of the lakes is still as pure as the day it was created. The other lake is now one of the most polluted in the world. The lakes are connected in ways most of us wouldn't understand. This is a tale of those two lakes, Skaneateles and Onondaga, the beauty and the beast, and how they became like that. The beast in our story is called Onondaga Lake. Onondaga Lake was central to the Six Nations of the Iroquois, the Native Americans who populated upstate New York.
Well, the lake is sacred to the Onondagas and the other nations of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy because centuries ago it was on the shores of the lake that their peacemaker formed their confederacy.
Along the shores of the lake were pools of brine that were a source of necessary salt. The lake itself teemed with fish, the shores were full of wildlife, reeds grew in the surrounding swamps with which they were able to make all kinds of containers and other vessels. Onondaga Lake was the first site of white European settlement in central New York when the French explorers came in the 1600s. But the French settlement didn't last, and the lake continued unspoiled. After the Revolutionary War, the next wave of European settlement came to Onondaga Lake. Initially, few people settled around the lake because it was surrounded by a swamp which was infested with mosquitoes and black flies. But when the Erie Canal came to upstate New York in the early 1800s, the lake quickly became a focal point of settlement and industry. The swamps were drained and a salt industry grew up around the lake, taking advantage of the brine pools. There were then so many fish in the lake that it supported a vibrant fishing industry. By 1880, the lake was ringed with amusement parks, hotels, resorts and bathing beaches.
And it was until the 1880s that Onondaga Lake had resort hotels around the same side of the lake that we now have an industrial wasteland. The whitefish from Onondaga Lake were a delicacy in New York City restaurants before Salve Process and the other industrial mess moved in there.
But later, in the 1880s, two things happened which would change the lake forever. In 1884, the Solvay Process Company, later to become Allied Signal Corporation, began industrial production of soda ash along the shores of the lake. In 1888, an event known as the Great Water Steal occurred, and a decision was made to stop drawing fresh water from Onondaga Lake and get it from another source. That source was Skaneateles Lake. William Henry Seward, President Lincoln's Secretary of State, one of the well-traveled Americans of the mid-19th century, called Skaneateles Lake the most beautiful body of water in the world. It's a narrow, long and deep glacial lake, one of New York's famous Finger Lakes. The Iroquois named it Skaneateles, which means long lake. Sitting 867 feet above sea level, Skaneateles Lake is the highest of the Finger Lakes and is called the roof garden of the Finger Lakes. It's almost 14 miles long, with gorge-like sides that drop off quickly. Its width ranges from 1 mile to a quarter-mile wide, with a maximum depth of 300 feet. Due to its remote location and relative inaccessibility, Skaneateles Lake never saw the kind of early settlement that Syracuse did after the building of the Erie Canal.
In the Skaneateles Lake watershed, we have a shape created by the glaciers, as was the case in all the Finger Lakes, that caused development patterns along with its location that didn't stress it. And so we got lucky in that sense, that the major cities didn't get constructed in the watershed.
Because of the stunning natural beauty of the lake, it became a popular resort area, and many wealthy people were attracted to the physical beauty of the lake and its surroundings.